Hi, welcome to the Catholic Corner. I'm Monsignor Walter Nolan. My guest today is the author of the book, 909 Days That Changed the World. A great book, and we're going to have a lot of fun talking about it. And I don't know if I can tell you this, but I'd go get a copy. It's a great book, 909 Days That Changed the World. This book provides a chronological timeline of Jesus' public life, giving you a framework of Jesus' ministry, as maybe help you give a little better understanding of Jesus as a man. We got to find out how this great author put this all together.
Thank you, Monsignor.
Robert J. Dunne III was born and raised in Dumont, New Jersey. He attended Catholic Elementary School and St. Joseph Regional High School in Montvale, New Jersey, getting close to my little territory. Bob's a graduate of Columbia College in New York City and earned an MBA from the University of Chicago. Bob worked on Wall Street for Salomon Brothers for 21 years, most of his professional career as a fixed-income bond salesman and sales manager. After leaving Wall Street, he opened up a franchise tutoring business, the Huntington Learning Center in Princeton, which he owned and operated for 6 years. Bob and his marvelous best friend, wife, Paula, have been married for 30 years. 3 beautiful children, Christina, who's 24, Rob, who's 22, and Nicole, a precious 16. Their parishioners at St. David the King Church in Princeton Junction, another beautiful, beautiful place of faith. And Bob's also the chairman of the Diocese of Trenton Finance Committee. So I guess some of that other background is helping us in the diocese to a good degree. He enjoys writing, and the seed of this book, as he'll explain, was sown in the mid-1980s. Bob, welcome.
Thank you, Monsignor.
Boy,
it's a pleasure to be here.
I
Pleasure to
tell
see
you, this is, I can't wait till we get into this. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your Catholic faith growing up.
I grew up in Dumont, New Jersey, which is in Bergen County. I am the oldest of 5 children. And as you said, I went to elementary Catholic school and a Catholic high school. And my faith has always been important to me. So I've always been a faithful man, more or less. I think I probably took a couple of detours along the way when I was in my early 20s, but you know, the detours weren't that.
It's a pilgrimage. We're on a pilgrimage. That's what I tell everybody. The Catholic high school you went to?
St. Joseph Regional in Montvale.
Who runs that? Is that a diocesan school or religious?
It was at the time, and it was run by Xaverian Brothers.
Oh, Xaverian Brothers.
Still a Catholic school, although there are no more. The Xaverian Brothers aren't there anymore.
Yeah.
I was one of the first graduating classes. When we were there, we were a terrible football team. In fact, our first football game against Bergen Catholic. Those people that know high school football will know both Bergen Catholic, St. Joseph Regional, and Don Bosco. We lost 66-000 in the first game.
Well,
so,
don't be too embarrassed. A lot of other teams have lost to those people.
Not big enough.
It sounds like your faith was always important to you as a young guy growing up. Was it always important to you? Was it always like at the center of some of your decision-making times?
I don't know if it was always at the center. My parents were very, very Catholic. My father in particular was a very devout man. I remember very clearly when we would go to Mass, my father receiving communion, and I'm the oldest of 5, and all the other brothers and sisters are making noise, trying to distract Daddy, and he was just like, he was praying. And that always impressed me, and I think that impression of my father being so devout has always stuck with me, and through the ups and downs of life, that I've always come back to that image.
Yeah, it's funny you said that, because I have an image of my dad, something similar. I remember Mom was away, whatever, and he was in a room and sitting on the edge of the bed saying the rosary, and I passed by, and my dad was a beautiful man. I say simple but profound faith. I mean, he didn't have a lot of education and whatever. So I said, Dad, what are you doing? He said, with the rosary in his hand, he says, well, what do you think I'm doing? But it was just that simple faith of those men that was just unbelievable.
And my father was the same way. He was high school educated, went to the war. came back, got a job, worked his entire life as a clerk, 3 jobs to support 5 kids.
And they did it.
And he did
and they loved it.
And he loved it.
Yeah, and they were proud of their families. Tell me a little bit about this marvelous, I don't even love the name, 909 days that changed the world. And the first time I knew this was, I guess you must have been speaking publicly somewheres, and a fellow I know sent me a copy and you signed it for me. And I said to myself, oh my God, this is a marvelous, marvelous piece of work.
Well, thank you. I wrote the book basically because over the years I've always looked upon Jesus more as God than as man, and I had a very hard time picturing Jesus Christ as a man. So I would, go to Mass every Sunday, hear the same stories. In fact, frequently I would be at Mass, hear the story, and I would say, I would stop listening. I know how this one ends, right?
Yeah, right.
But as I got older and I was starting to think about, trying to deepen my faith more, and I would read the 4 Gospels individually and try to reflect on them, but I really had a hard time thinking about Jesus Christ as a role model, as a man. And so what I really wanted to do was to write a book, more of the emphasis with Jesus Christ as a man and as a role model. And that's what got me going on writing this book.
And that's I think you almost have to bring them down to that incarnational duality in a sense,
Yes.
because then you can feel
Yes.
this manhood.
Yes.
And I think it allows our manhood and womanhood and personhood to grow.
Yes.
I just, you said many years of personal prayer and study reflection. Was that in your young life? When did all that start?
I think when I was in grammar school, Baltimore Catechism, Jesus Christ is true God and true man. Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
Okay, and I know that. But I always kind of, as I said before, thought about Jesus Christ more as a true God. And then in the middle 80s, I read this book called The Theology of the Body. As you know,
Sure.
back in 1979, Pope John Paul II on Wednesday started these audiences where he talked about kind of like a new anthropology, Adam and Eve before the fall. And he talked a lot about how men and women dealt with one another, how they should, and so he tried to bring us back. And one of the things that he said that really struck me was that Jesus Christ came not only to save us from our sins, but to show man how to be man. And when I came across that phrase in the middle to late 80s, that's what really got me going, Monsignor, because I said to myself, well, wait a minute, I really think about Jesus Christ as a God. He's got the ledger up there, and when I die, I hope the assets are more than the liabilities. I've never really thought about him as a man, as somebody who came to show men and women how to be human beings. So I said to myself, well, how am I going to find out more about Jesus Christ as a man? Because as I said before, I'd read the Gospels, go to church, and meditated, but I still don't quite get this sense of Jesus Christ as a human being, as a man. So you know what I did? If you like a historical figure like Abraham Lincoln, and you go to school and you learn all these different facts with them about school, what do you do if you want to know more about Abraham Lincoln as a man? What kind of a book do you read? Well, you read a biography, right? So starting in the late 80s, I tried to get on this kind of roll by saying, okay, well, let me find biographies of Jesus Christ. So over the next 15, 20 years, because I'm working, I get married, I have a family, and I've got other things to do. So over the next 15 or 20 years, I'm looking at trying to find biographies, reading. The internet comes along, which is one of the wonderful parts about the internet, is that it gives me opportunity to do all kinds of different research. And what I find is that there is some very scholarly agreement as to how these 4 Gospels fit together. There's the chronology. Nobody knows for sure, but there's like a 75 to 90% agreement that this is probably how it took place. And so then I started reading, at the same time I'm reading different books about Jesus, kind of biographical books, so to speak, historical fiction. And what I found when I read a lot of them was that they were either very, very theological, so that they were, a couple of tomes, or that they presented Jesus Christ the same way that I thought about him, as God. I mean, he is God, of course, but too much emphasis on this idea that he's our Savior, and not enough emphasis on the Pope John Paul II thing, which is that he came to show me how to be a man. So as I was doing all this, I came to the conclusion that, none of those books I've read 3 or 4 of them, none of these books none of them really work for me. They don't really make me think about God as a man. So I said, somebody should write a book like this. Somebody should take these chronologies and write a book that kind of the ordinary Christian, right? So somebody who's not, been to seminary or theology school, but that the ordinary Christian can read and can get a better glimpse of Jesus Christ as a man. Because I do believe that if you look at somebody's life as kind of a biography, you get a much better sense of the person than you do if you go to Mass on Sunday and you hear this one gospel and then you hear the next gospel. But most of the times I would say to myself, well, when did this happen?
Sure.
Did this happen at the beginning of his ministry?
Sure.
Why is he saying this now?
What's the context even?
What's the context?
Sure.
So
and why is this story in this gospel and maybe not in that gospel?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot, sure.
All of that stuff.
I guess they call it the Sitz and Leben, Jesu, life situation of Jesus at the time. Yeah, it's all beautiful, beautiful thoughts and patterns.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time thinking about this and saying, so this idea builds up, well, somebody should be writing a book like this, and so somewhere along the line is, I get this little, well, why don't you write a book? Because I do like to write. I've never published anything, but, and I said, well, I can't write, right? I can't write this book. There's 3 big reasons I can't write the book. Number 1, the reason I can't write the book is it takes too much time. It takes a long time to write a book.
It does.
And the second reason I can't write a book is because you have to get a publisher. And then when you get a publisher, the way the publishing business works is that if you get somebody to publish a book for you, guess who buys the first 1,000 copies of the book? You do. So you end up with, a lot of people that have
a warehouse of books.
They get in their basement. They have 1,000 books because they sell them to their closest 100 friends, and then after that you're done, right?
A lot of Christmas presents.
A lot of Christmas presents, right? And so that becomes pretty expensive. You're looking at $15,000, $20,000 to publish a book because you've got to buy the first 100. I mean, first 1,000. And then the third one, of course, is that I worked on Wall Street, and I mean, what background do I have to write a book about Jesus Christ? I mean, I have no credentials. I have no credibility to write this book. And on top of that, I tend to be a little bit of a vain man, and I don't want to write this book because suppose it's a failure. Suppose people laugh at me, because the effort is so silly. So I sat around with that idea for 10 years. And then 2 things happened. The first thing was that a friend of mine back around 2008, he self-published a book. Mm-hmm. And he wrote about a high school friend of his who unfortunately got killed in Vietnam. But he wrote a very, very interesting book about his relationship with him. And so he's actually a fellow partner at Solomon Brothers. And he was telling me about it, and what I learned in listening to him is that the publishing business, with the advent of computers, had changed radically. So the self-publishing business was really pretty much all print on demand. you didn't need to buy the first 1,000 copies because it was just in a computer. So you end up paying for the editing, the setup, et cetera, et cetera. So instead of being a $15,000 to $20,000 expense, it really comes down to be about a $5,000 expense. So that kind of took my second objection out of the way, right? Because I don't need to find a publisher. I can just hire a publisher, and instead of costing me 20 grand, it's going to cost me 5 grand. That's still a lot of money, but you know, I could do that. But I still decided not really, I didn't think I should do it. And then one other thing really began to happen, which was that the more I thought about this, and I got this thought, Monsignor, at one particular point along the way, that I was thinking about this whole process all wrong. And you're more than familiar with the story in the Old Testament about Abraham and how he's bargaining with God about the city of Sodom. 50 people, will you save it? 25? 10? How about 5? And I got this sense, okay, that, well, Bob, if you wrote this book, and it affected and helped 5 people, would you write it? And because you're thinking about this book all wrong, you know, would you write it? And the answer was, yeah, I would write it. And then I got this sense of saying, well, okay, you write the book, it affects 5 people, and I can guarantee you that, and you just leave it up to God to see how many people it will ultimately affect. And that's
how we did it.
That's got me where we are.
And you have a beautiful cover. That's wheat fields and sky, and I know a little bit about self-publishing, but usually you need somebody to help you design some of the parts of that which is.
Yes.
Did you do this yourself?
Well, we actually got the picture is we picked up the picture from my publisher, Leone Press, has a series of multiple pictures that you can choose. Yeah. So we have a daughter, Nicole, who is 16 years old, who's at Notre Dame High School, and I'm advertising the school by wearing the tie. And so she and I went through all these pictures, and she was actually the one that picked out that particular picture. She picked it out because the sun is rising there, and of course the sun is not only the S-U-N, but it's also the S-O-N. And the wheat fields there represent not only just the wheat fields, but it's also, of course, the Eucharist, and there's parables about the wheat fields. So that's how we got to the cover.
Terrific, terrific. I know that you would talk about the chronology, and you have the chronology in the back of your book.
Yes.
And that's a help for everybody, isn't it? To glance at that once in a while and to see that the parallels or whatever of the Gospels.
Yes, it is a help. I think that frequently when you go to Mass on Sunday and you hear the Gospel, and you would say to yourself, well, when did this happen? Yeah. Well, you can go to the back of that book and look up that particular passage, and you'll see the context.
And then, I was just thinking that, and sometimes it happened around feast days, or they traveled to get there. It really enhances. Just like it's telling a story, and the more you know about the story, the more you're in the story. I think it invites you inside of it. Tell me, what do you hope people take away? Let me go back to you. How'd you get to 909 days?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that question because. 909 days is about 2.5 years. 365 plus 365 plus about half is 909. The reason I picked 909 days, of course, it's meant to be public. Jesus' public ministry was about 2.5 years. It's about 909 days. 909 days, however, the reason I picked that number is because in the Jewish tradition, the number 18, if you go to bar mitzvahs, things, they always like to have their presents in multiples of 18, $18, $36, you know. And so I picked the number 8. If you add 9 and 9 together, it's 18, because I wanted a tie-in to Jesus' Jewish tradition. I wanted the tie-in. So when you read the book, every number in the book adds up to either 18 or, because some of them I can't get to 18, add up to 9. So it's all meant to be a tie-in.
Well, biblically, numbers meant an awful lot back in those days.
Because number 18
When I got the copy sent to me from my friend Tony Dowling, I said to myself, I looked at it and I said, I'm gonna add this all up. And when I heard you come on the show, I think I was gonna kid you and say, I thought it was 912 days.
You could be right.
That's so beautiful. How does Jesus show us how to be happy on earth? I mean, we talk about how to be a man and thing, which is so wonderful. And how do you put this into practice?
When I wrote the book, one of the things that I was trying, as I said before, to really emphasize is Jesus' humanity. And with a lot of prayer and a lot of meditation, reading a lot of things myself, I think what I pulled myself from this is Jesus' ability to really be a forgiving man, and Jesus' ability to give his undivided attention to people that he was with. So Jesus was not the kind of man that, and I can be this way sometimes, that when I'm at a party, I'm talking to the person who's right there, but I'm kind of looking over their shoulder at the same time to see, well, you know, who else is coming to this party, you know? Right. Jesus wasn't that way.
Yeah.
Jesus was the kind of person who would forgive everybody for anything and was never judgmental. I self-published this book, and you go back and forth with the publisher. It's a Catholic press publisher, Leone Press. I picked them because they were Catholic, and I wanted to have somebody that knew the story. And, sure. And one of the things they said to me was, you know, your Jesus is a little bit too angry here from time to time. You know, he's too angry. And I disagreed. I said, no, Jesus got angry. But the difference is that when Jesus gets angry, he got angry in order to help the other person. When I get angry because they're upsetting me. It's more about me than it is about the other people. And so, so when I feel getting upset at my wife or my children, I try to remember that why am I getting angry? Am I getting angry because I'm trying to help them, or I'm getting angry because they're upsetting something that I wanted to do? So he really, that humanity of his helps me, I hope, and I think, to be a better husband, a better father, a better friend.
Yeah, I can feel what you're saying, that his anger, in a sense, is almost to say, bringing it to that full humanness. You know, was it St. Irenaeus who said the glory of God is the human person fully alive? That's got a lot of stuff in there, because I think he's really saying that the human person, fully human person, is being the gift of divinity. You know, is being the gift of the fatherhood of Abba, of God. And I think that's why Jesus could say, you know, here's the path, here's the stuff to give you the full joy. And sometimes we kind of, and he's almost trying to get us back to where that joy is, and the joy of God's love is. You know, it's
and as Pope John Paul II said, you know, Jesus came to show man how to be man. And if we could get back to the garden to some degree and deal with one another the way that Adam and Eve dealt with one another, we would be happy, because that's the way that we were really kind of made. But we don't.
Except for that original sin.
Right.
What kind of a response have you had from the book?
Well, the response has been good. The average self-published book sells between 100 and 150 copies in total. This book has sold almost 1,000 copies.
Terrific.
And there's very little marketing muscle behind. You know, when you hire your own publisher, when you have a publisher, they do a lot of marketing. But in a self-published book, the only marketing muscle is this one,
right?
Which is not that big. So,
what are some of your favorite parts or aspects of the book?
Clearly, Jesus is forgiving people. I love the woman caught in adultery at the Feast of Tabernacles towards the end of his career. I love that story. I love how he just was so forgiving, non-judgmental. I love the story of him at the well in Samaria when he meets the woman. I love that story. I love how much he just gave himself to her, much probably to the scandal of the apostles who come back and see him talking with a Samaritan woman. And then I can imagine their fear when all the Samaritan men come charging down the hill, and they say, "Oh my gosh, what did he say to her?"
Yeah, or run away and said,
Yeah.
"It was him, not us." You know?
Right.
But you know what's marvelous about it, that the chapters I've read, is that you have a beautiful way of taking, I'm going to say, your meditation and allowing the humanness of your life or the humanness of your own meditation, and having Jesus being right inserted into that story, which I think is the precious gift of this book, is that it allows people to kind of say, you know, this story of Jesus is not just something out there somewhere for us to read and say, oh, what a great movie we can make out of this. It's to draw you into the story, so that you can say, oh, gee, maybe I'm that lady at the well, or maybe I'm that guy racing down the hill.
Yes.
And then you put it into ways so that make it almost as if you were there.
Yes.
Which is a marvelous gift that you have there.
And that is the goal. And when I wrote that, my feeling is that Jesus is such a strong personality, and he has so much to say to each individual, that if you just put Jesus out there as a human being, because there's generalities, of course, but what he has to say to you as a Monsignor and a priest is a little bit different than what he has to say to me as a married man with a wife. And it's different than another man who's married with a different wife. So the
single people.
Or single people. So the hope is that the book makes Jesus more concrete, so that there are concrete things that I personally and everyone that reads the book can take out of it.
Has your own faith grown deeper?
Yes.
Yeah, it has to.
It really, I mean, the time I spent writing the book, meditating, and just trying to replicate my life more as Jesus Christ as a man has really made my faith deeper. And I mean, you can ask my wife whether it's made me a better husband or not, but, you know, maybe.
If I see you at Mass and I'm preaching, I'm going to say, do I have it right, Bob? Do I have it right? Bob, it's a marvelous, marvelous book. Do you think you'll write another?
I don't know. This was a lot of work, and I don't know.
But it's a marvelous work, and I hope folks really get to not just purchase it, but take it and use it for meditation. Bob's book is available on Kindle and Nook format. For more information on 909 Days That Changed the World by Robert J. Dunne III, go to Leonon, is that the right pronunciation? LeononPublishers.com or Amazon.com and BarnesandNobles.com. Please, you're looking for some spiritual stuff, it's a marvelous book, but just don't read it. Let it absorb you into it. God bless you. Pray for us. We you. Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Monsignor.
That's really wonderful.
Thank you
really,
very
really,
much.
It's a wonderful
Thank
work.
you. Thank you.